This is Ed, and you're on Global TV Talk Show. I'm in San Diego, and we have a fantastic group here. Such A personalities, and so beautiful to look at. And you're going to want to tune in audio because they're really smart in what they do. So I'm really honored to have this group together. Mark Nadich is executive in residence at Marquette University, a premier college based in Milwaukee area, right, Mark?
Correct.
And has a background in big pharma at senior levels of HR, CHRO, VPHR. Nana Haninen is based in Finland and is an artist, photography artist, and is bringing together corporate people using her art to bring together people from across cultures, from across whatever, to communicate better, right, Nana?
Yes. Hi, everybody.
Great, thank you. Patricia Fours is now in partnership in a new venture with Eva Clevis. I'm sure I mispronounced that. and so, ladies, Eva, would you take it from here for a couple of minutes?
Absolutely. What we have been, both Patricia and I have been working with HR for many, many years. You know, when you come to the point when you don't even want to calculate the number of years, but we have had the honor of working in different organizations, both bigger and smaller. And we both share an interest in how does the future look, the future work solution look for companies. I mean, we've been discussing this for so many years, but I mean, the pandemic really pushed it a bit further. And suddenly, I mean, I remember 2015, I was sitting in a group management. We were talking about what's happened, you know, robotics, artificial intelligence, how will this affect our business? We didn't talk that much about the employees at that point of time. It was more all these other new cool words, VR, how will this affect us? And then suddenly the pandemic came and everything changed. I mean, suddenly from one day to another, people were supposed to work from home. If they didn't use Teams or Zoom or whatever, they quickly had to learn how to do it. And it also put another focus on the managers, because from a manager where you could, you know, you saw your team, you could see this person doesn't seem to be happy today, or this person seemed to be stressed. Suddenly, you couldn't use the same way to manage your people. And the same goes to what kind of employees do I actually need for the future? And are we working in the right way? I mean, the tools we used to have, will they still be working in the new era? So from having, you know, we had built all these tools in all kinds of HR related areas that was working fine. Suddenly everything was changed more or less during a night. And no one was really prepared out of it. And then, you know, now when the pandemic is starting to go over, we still have the questions because we won't go back to the old normal. It's a new normal and how to handle it.
Patricia,
so that's what we are focusing on.
Tell us your take and about what you want to make your new business with Eva do.
Well, you know, future work is, like Eva said, it has been on the agendas for a very long time. But actually, the interesting is that it was on the agenda since 2015, isn't it? But this kind of like change in the world has really affected how we live, how we work, everything, our values, our community. When we're basically, I came from developing the model from previously, but when we were interviewing people, companies, basically, they were talking about that our values have changed. It's how they look on community, how they want to live. They are associating much more with neighbors. They are moving out in the countryside, selling their houses in London and so on. So basically we are seeing, and it's not only a pandemic, but it's also about, if you reflect on it, it's all kind of trends on like sustainability. for example, that people want to know the responsibility of the companies. We have a wave of a new generation who wants to have like totally responsible employers, isn't it? We have political instability. We have, not mentioning the ex-president's name in the US, but we have also now another war going on in Europe. So all these kind of our supply chain, like this kind of disruptions where we have cars which are like basically delayed for 9-10 months in delivery. So it's the whole way of living is different. And I think that everyone is questioning, okay, global, local, how are we supposed to live as well? So I think that we have a model which we have developed, and with that model we would like to put the human in the center. So basically what you're talking about is, I'm usually saying that leave the employee experience behind, but talk actually about human experience instead. So if we can, as one thing, if the people can find the passion in what they're working with, and they can integrate that into their life, so it works with having children, with having basically like and not having commuting, all kind of things they want to maybe go out running in the morning. So it's like, how do you want your life to look like? So work with passion and integrate it into your needs. So leave this kind of work-life balance behind, but talk about work-life integration instead. So we are really talking about how to build a human-centric organization where you put a human in the center, but also where we have an organization which is agile, which is adaptable, which is flat, which is modern, and not the 1900s invention of the pyramid, which is network-based, where we have a collective leadership, where we're empowering people. We have seen, for example, during the pandemic that suddenly, when you hit the crisis and the ivory towers lost control, suddenly the productivity of the people went up. And when the ivory tower caught up with the processes and templates and everything, then the productivity went down. So basically, how can we create this kind of crisis mode in the new normal? Because people want to be empowered, people want to be trusted, people want to have leaders who actually give them responsibility, accountability. And how do we create a structure to create this kind of accountability? So basically the model is putting all those kind of things in the center, what you should be thinking about building your future strategy to reach this kind of human-centric organization.
Do you want to hold up that iPad that we discussed yesterday?
Let's see if you will see it. I hope so, but I don't know if it's
no, it's blurry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Okay, but we will have you send that around to everybody's as a follow-up. So let's go to, let me get the screen back, the gallery. Okay, Dr. Ivan, this sounds like a very human-centric now and a nice place to work.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think?
Now I am working in Sweden, so I think that it's a place that is really worried about people, about how to manage crisis, and I think that as Patricia has explained, all the country has been affected by the pandemic, of course, but Sweden is not the exception. But I think that the final impact with the pandemic still being on the measurement, and we need to follow a little bit more information. For example, that the impact in the mental health is something that we need to investigate. It's too early to investigate, but I used to work now with I used to work in Costa Rica and in Mexico with a employee assistance program that was related with the quality of life and support to employees in the companies. And now I am working with a young population. So it's a little bit different, but it's a human center and is related with take care of the people.
Dave Levine. Oh, you're on mute.
We applaud those the focus that Patricia and Eva are taking in the business. our niche, as Yvonne was saying, is the mental health aspects of the human experience at work. And it doesn't account for everything, but in 20% of those adjustment issues, people are adjusting to family, to finances, to illness, to loss. But about 20% of those issues benefit from a counselor. It's pretty obvious that mental health issues spiked during the pandemic. And awareness, as importantly, awareness by employers increased. The appreciation of the impact of behavioral health on people's day-to-day work. So we're in business for those folks that have maybe given it some thought but not planned for resources for their employees to help bolster their mental health status, in particularly in the wake of crises where people don't know who to turn to and want some help for their employees, want to express their compassion, genuinely care about them, but haven't services in place to help them.
Mark Nadich, would you like to comment on all this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned now being more on the educational side of things is, the impact that the challenges that we faced the last 2 years for young people. I mean, it's for everyone, but the statistics that I see are really very glaring around mental health and mental challenges for students, both young students as well as up through college. And so I think, one of the things that the university where I work at today is really part of their Jesuit philosophy is the focus on the whole person, cura personalis, so as they call it. And it really is the focus on, and I think companies today are, finding that that's really an important way that they need to look at their business model. So this kind of human-centric or looking at the whole is much better than the individual parts, so to speak.
Ava, would you like to comment on that and how that relates to what you and Patricia are working on about the future of work?
No, but I fully agree. I mean, we need to look at the full human experience. If you're not happy with your employer, with your work situation, it will automatically, of course, affect the output. And considering the fact everything goes more and more quick, meaning that the companies will suffer harder and harder if you don't, manage to keep the pace with the company. But at the same time, we need to find a balance, because nowadays you need to find a balance with everything. You need to have, if we look at the younger generation, they want a balance with a family. They are not prepared to work too much. They want to have, a higher purpose. It's not only about working, it's other things. They want to feel that what they are doing for their employer fits to their own beliefs.
Yeah, no. So all this goes towards trust, right? Trust between strangers, right?
Yes. It sounds it's very much about trust and communication. Thank you, Patricia, Eva, Yvonne, Mark, Dave, for all the great comments that you had for the topic. When we use art in organizational development and in facilitation that I do, and even coaching nowadays, I do executive coaching with art that helps people to open up pretty quickly about even challenging topics. And when people can open up and start to trust each other and see each other as just another human, and this trusty environment helps us to be even more healthy mentally. I'm currently actually working with a group of public sector leaders who are trying to figure out why the mental health rates in my area are so high, the highest from Finland. And how we start to work with this team was actually to build the trust between the leaders themselves, and to help the leaders kind of see how they can open up about the difficult challenges, or how they can actually, if they see something they should actually focus on, where they should and where they could get the courage to actually speak out. Because in public sector, for example, it's very easy to see it's not my backyard, you know, so they look somewhere else. But you know, how to gain the trust, how to gain the courage to talk with each other, even about the difficult issues, personal issues or issues with employees or the organization itself. And by using art, we kind of we can get very quickly into the actual point of the challenge that we are discussing, which, for example, could be the not being open with each other.
Dr. Yvonne, the use of art, that is a perfect psychological safety valve, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really important tools among that you can use for work with a population that need to work with mental health. It is really, really important tools. Yeah.
So Michelle, in your work as a counselor in terms of relocation assistance of people parachuting into a new place and not knowing anything about the area, there's a lot of trust necessary, right?
Absolutely. We have to ask the right questions and help them understand. It also helps that most of us have relocated before. We know what it's like to come to a new country and everything is foreign, especially the language in Scandinavia. The Nordics are, it's really, the names of the streets are quite long. Back in the day, you know, you're looking at your map and you look up and you've forgotten how it's spelled already. So a lot of questions, we ask a lot of questions to create the trust and connect with people like we're doing here. And it's really so spot on. We just interviewed somebody in our company today for a new position. And one of those things is what's important in our company. And it's really happiness, that work-life balance or the work-life integration is extremely important to us, because when we're happier, we're more productive. So that's it just goes hand in hand. So it's really, this is so cool to hear. And I'm really interested, Nana, in the art aspect, because I hadn't thought of that, how you actually incorporate like your art. Is it something you've created yourself, or taken the pictures yourself? Are they of people? Are they of things? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I have. I have been working as an artist for over 20 years, and I have kind of collected over 20 art pieces, and I have created stories behind those artworks, and I use those when I facilitate people, so that there are certain topics that we can bring out via some photographs that I have been taking, like about the landscape or something that I have been doing in the studio. And when people don't really understand exactly what they are seeing in that artwork, they kind of start to find words, and this finding words and trying to get new wording, that's very important, also in innovation, but also when people try to kind of understand who they are, where they are placed, what kind of a team they are, what's the vision, what's the mission, what's the value of the company. It's not very clear for everybody, and everybody understands it so differently. So when we use art and photos, it kind of helps us to describe it better and from our own point of view. So art works really well when trying to understand how everybody sees differently. A value, for example, basic value like love, for example, everybody has a different kind of story, and we can use pictures and art to kind of describe it for each other.
Mhm.
Thank you. Eva, you wanted to talk about the McKinsey setup, right?
Yeah, but what I've been looking a bit into is related to this new way of working and all these tools that we should review. I mean, it's not only, I've been focusing on the talent management matrix, this 9-grid matrix. This is, of course, not only the only tool that we might feel comfortable in starting questioning. It goes back to everything. But for instance, in this, within HR, we have a tendency that we want to review the people. We want to know who is the talent, who is the high performer, or the one that we could promote in some kind. It's just that in this new way of working, maybe this doesn't really work. In this case, this tool has been part of the HR for, I mean, decades. It came originally in the 70s for a completely other purpose. It was made for the GE. And I think it was brilliant at that time. And then it was transformed into a talent management tool. It's just that if we are going to look at this a more human-centric way of working with our employees, I'm just a bit questioning if this is the right way of dividing people. Who is the talent and who is not? Because we will create a we and them. If you're not a talent, are you anything at all? Or are you just crap? And how do we measure talent? I mean, this has been a question for so many years. And we still don't have a good way of doing it. And regardless how you do it, it will be rather subjective. And I mean, Yvonne, you working with psychology, I'm sure that you know both about the halo effect and the horn effect, meaning that, I mean, if we say someone is, this is a talent, we will, as a human, based on the halo effect, we will have that to regard everything that happens afterwards. This person must be great. Same applies for those who would say, these are not good resources. Based on the horn effect, we will see them in the opposite. So it will be much harder for them to move up from that part of this tool.
Mark Nadich, I think this is in your tennis court right now. So why don't you go a little deeper here?
Well, it's a really interesting point, Eva. I think a lot of organizations today are trying to figure out how do you do this in this environment, right? And I am a big proponent of, what most people want is, whether those are young, early career people or very senior level people, is they want to know, like, what does success look like, right? And so I spent a number of years working with an organization and a terrific leader in this space called Mark Efron. Many people know Mark Efron, and he was really instrumental in helping us as we spun off Abbott into the AbbVie into a new independent company. We spent a lot of time. One of our 4 priorities was culture, and within that culture umbrella was really defining our talent philosophy. And I think what people want is, I have a 35-year-old and a 31-year-old today, and they want to know what the rules are, right? I think most people do. And I think companies that tie that to their purpose and their mission and the broader focus on how can I be my best in the environment we work in. But I think there's still a lot of companies that, remember years ago where people got rid of like performance reviews and all these other things. And I think many of them went back to that because they feel like, well, how do you truly measure and differentiate what great performance is? So I agree. I think there's a balance. I think it's also very different when you have an environment where many people are not working, in the office. And I think today, there's ways in which you can still have that kind of clarity of intent around each of our purposes. But I think there's companies that are doing this well are also seeing really more and more of an attraction mechanism because there's clarity around kind of what you're trying to do as an organization, and I think everyone wants that.
Yeah. Can I comment that, Edwin?
Yeah,
Please.
I fully agree, Mark, because what I would like to see is that we work with talent, well, not really talent, but that we work with this from the other perspective. I mean, if we start looking into what does the company need, if you look at the strategy, in what direction are we going? And based on that, what kind of tasks, projects, initiatives do we need to do? And then we can look into what people do we have and how can we use and utilize their knowledge, their competence. Because if we do that, then suddenly the people will feel, I'm doing this because I have a competence that this company needs.
Right.
That means I might be a talent for that specific project, if you would say it so. It's just I'm not very happy with the word talent.
Let's say, Ed, if I can comment further on the discussion here, I think that the future of work overall is talking about talent as the learning agility. So it's so we are supposed to basically like, how are we learning throughout our lives? Because it's not only about accessing, like going out from university and having the same like career your whole life, but maybe you have 5 different careers. So actually it's about how you basically change. So this is what actually is connected to future work. And also what is connected to future work is actually how you build the shared performance models. Because if you're talking about network organizations, if you're talking about teams floating around with partners outside and inside, then we're talking about not measuring individual performance, but also by measuring shared performance. So I think there is, if you're supposed to discuss future work, I would review quite a lot of processes, but there is definitely clear trends. What is future about performance, about leadership, about how you should work with diversity, with sustainability, and so on.
So I'd like to ask Dave Levine to jump in here. Thank you for being patient. So Dave, tell us a little bit, just review quickly about your company and your activities personally in Europe, as well as Asia Pacific and upcoming in Latin America.
Thanks, Ed. We focus on mental health issues and provide crisis response in 75 countries around the globe. Global care experts, that's the business. We also offer multi-language wellness apps to help get in front of crisis, help people access care in front of crisis. I'm also on the board of the European Employee Assistance Forum and the Asia Pacific Employee Assistance Roundtable to keep active, keep that global perspective going. And I have to ask, if you don't mind, Ed, Nana and Eva and Patricia particularly, is this and even Mark's comments, is this tougher to do, this humanistic approach and looking at the whole person and everything they bring to work? Is it tougher to do in Sweden or in Scandinavia generally? What I'm thinking is people are fiercely independent and proud of that independence. And most countries want limited government intervention, but I'm recalling that Sweden was slow to mandate anything in light of the pandemic. No mandates for masking and slower on vaccinations. They caught up. They saw a spike, but unlike most countries, in terms of social distancing and masks, they trusted their population to do the right thing, and that didn't work. It spiked, and I think they acknowledged that in Sweden, people are fiercely independent and want that independence. So moving that, and nobody was worse than the US in cases per thousand with the pandemic and all. But I'm curious, is that independence, that streak that people have, that I associate with Scandinavian general and Sweden in particular, does that make it tougher? Do people bring that independence into this endeavor, the workplace of the future, and does that make it tougher?
Can I just with the pandemic, I think you're connecting the culture here. It's that we have it like naturally built in that we're keeping distance to people. I think it's like Scandinavia is quite well known for that. So I think that the government basically maybe kept the trust that we're going to be keeping distance anyway. You should be here during winter 6 months, the two people basically not leaving their homes anyway. So I think that's one aspect into it. But from your other question, if it's more difficult, no, I don't think so, actually. I think that it's a really modern culture. Now I have been working quite a lot in other countries as well. And I think it's very progressive in how you look on the human. So from that, maybe it's traditional in some way, but I think it's very human-oriented, cultures overall to look on. But I wanted to add in something because we were talking about the mental health. And actually in my previous jobs, I was doing some questionnaire latest in mental health. And what surprised me, particularly in Sweden, it was particularly Sweden, Norway, the Scandinavian countries, popped up very highly on young generation needed mental support, psychological support. Mm. So I think there is a change going on here, but I think the Scandinavian countries are quite open to this kind of human-centric way of working.
So Nana, I know you have to run soon. So before that happens, do you want to bring this together?
Yeah, well, I could say that Finland and Sweden actually acted quite differently when the COVID came. Sweden kept the society going and Finland closed the society up. And we obeyed, so we didn't have the peak in Finland. And so in that matter, we kind of acted independently, differently. I would say that the independence and the freedom that we have and the human-centric approach that we have in Finland relies on the trust, because people trust each other so much here, and also people are trustworthy, so we can trust each other. And that can actually bring the independence and freedom, both in society itself, but in organizations, employees, between people at workplaces. So in that matter, I think the independence is a very human-centric approach in Scandinavia and in Finland, in the Nordic countries, comes from that trust.
So
if I can say something.
Oh, please, Doctor. Yes.
Yeah. Now that we talk about Sweden, in Sweden, the pandemic was managed based on the accountable principle. That this means that those who oversees or are in charge of a particular area will be responsible as well as manage the crisis for the specific area. That it was the policies from the government to limit the transmission, provide peace of mind of the population and minimize the negative impact. But if we talk, as Debbie asked about the mental health, probably, as I said before, we need to wait a little bit for a little more research. But according to the Swedish Ministry of Health, the perceived level of stress and sleep problems during the beginning of the pandemic increased in around 7%. And there was expected a significant increase of depression levels. But according to the research that was conducted between 2020 and 2021, May, the numbers were similar, in similar levels compared to previous years. Regarding anxiety, for example, it was shown a reduction of this condition in elderly population, and probably based in the care measures taken from the government as for example, vaccination or protection at this group. But is under investigation, and it's a lot of research that Sweden is querying for have a more accurate data related with mental health and the pandemic.
Dave? Mute.
Sorry, we've got lawnmowers in the background and I'm trying to shut that noise out. Whether it's a 7% increase in Sweden or 50% increase in behavioral health issues, as a recent study by the Japan Department of Labor just came up with, I think there's broad recognition, appreciation that mental health impacts the workplace in ways that weren't recognized pre-pandemic. And I think that's the silver lining, if you will, in this awful virus, that people are appreciating at least that aspect, not just physical or spiritual or social, but also the mental health aspects of people, what people bring to work, and are willing to put that compassion, put that awareness into resources at work.
So Ava,
Bye, everybody now.
yeah, okay,
Bye,
bye.
Hannah.
Bye bye.
Have a nice
Nice
discussion.
to
Bye.
meet you.
Yeah, we'll see you then
Mhm.
again. Ava, so did we accomplish something good for you guys?
Absolutely, of course.
Cool. All right, cool. Well, for me too, that's for sure. So I thank you all for participating in this educational, lively session here. Mark, would you like to sum up?
Well, I just would like to say thank you to everyone here. And I think that this is exactly the kind of forum that we need to continue to have. I think just sharing with people who have great perspectives in many different areas, but in many ways, we're all connected very much around the work that we do, because it is the human side of what we do. And so it's great. I was very lucky early in my career to actually lead the relocation process, one of the more challenging jobs, I think, and underappreciated in many organizations. So I really have great respect for the folks that are doing this, because I remember those times, not only when I moved, but when I was helping other people move, and the human piece of it, as you talked about, Michelle, this kind of connection and building trust is so important. So kudos to all of you.
Michelle?
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Mark. And it's more and more we realize that it's the human connection. We have to find, well, in this business especially, you need that empathy. But I think in a lot of businesses, people are looking for new team members that have the empathy. It's not so much the skill and the diplomas, but they need to be able to interact well with their counterparts. And yeah, I love this business. Denmark is trying to win over Sweden to attract the talent. And it's so cool that you brought that up, Eva, about this word talent. And I had never thought of, well, what are the other people? When we talk about bringing talent to Denmark, because there's a lot of jobs we need to fill because the population is so small, I never thought of, well, we don't want the bad people, but in relocation we have only clients from heaven. At least that's what we want to attract, people that are happy to make that move, and we support it. But thanks for having me again, Ed. It was a pleasure.
Oh, thank you for your leadership here. So Dr. Yvonne, nice to meet you, and I welcome you to come back and do this again.
Thank you very much. It was really interesting. I am working a little bit more now in mental health, but I think that it's important to listening about what happened with the company, what happened in the society, in the market, for help not only people who has struggling with mental health, chronic disease or something like that, it's only important to prevent in the workplace.
So during September, I will be producing about 20 programs that are on a variety of topics, from people relocating to how that's being done, to recruitment and medical. Our medical TV series is it's really a couple of shows that we did this past 6 months have had huge numbers. So we're finding doctors and research scientists, particularly with stem cells. And one show that we just did, I'll be real brief here, is dealing with a company in Houston called Axiom, AXIOM, and they're a space company. They're building privately the first commercial space station. And a lot of it's going to be dedicated to medical research away from the gravity stuff of Earth. And so they're very excited about doing the neuro research, Mark, about how to work on using stem cells and some other stuff to try to cure the mechanisms that break down in the brain that deal with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and ALS. So that show had thousands of viewers, not the first day, but in the marketing. So we're going to be doing that. And then October 3 is our London conference. It's a focus on corporations and services connected with global talent, London, and post-Brexit BS and whatever is going on there. And then October 4 will be a focus on Paris, October 5 on Switzerland, October 6 Germany, October 7 Italy. So I'm building those programs right now, and hope to have you or on one or more of those, and come back when we do another Scandinavia thing, perhaps in about a month. Great, thank
Just
you.
a reminder, Ed, there are 30 days in September. I don't know why you're just doing 20 episodes.
He's taking a break.
It's mental health.
Yeah.
You know, but not a break because I need mental health. No, it's because this has become my therapy, because it's really not work. I mean, there's stuff to do, and you know, I have to ask people for money. So you know, it's you know, getting used to doing that in something that I love to do is unusual, and so that's where the challenges are. But that's coming, and so I'm really happy to say that this can continue. So between now and Christmas, we will produce about 50 programs, and maybe more. But you know, actually, what I've been averaging is about 20 a month, the past 4 or 5 months.
Cool.
Yeah. So once again, it's not work to me. I just schedule it, and trying to keep costs down and keep it honest and authentic. And it's because of people like you that tell me to do it this way, or don't do that, or consider another thing. Or about Ava, you brought it up. You just hit the nail on the head last week when you said, I don't get it. Why are you doing this? and so I had to think about it. No, let's see. What's the purpose of this? And so then I reached out to my old buddies, Michelle and Mark, and I said, I think you should join this program because I'm running out of things to think about. So thank you guys, really appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Dave,
Thank you.
once again, about your company, Global Care Experts, you being the big cheese here, the big sponsor. Thank you very much. If you want to sum up and just talk about what your next step is. Is it Latin America?
Next step in terms of,
Your own growth and development.
well, we're already around the globe in 75 countries, and we have the 14 primary countries where multinationals employ folks throughout Latin America. And actually, that's where I met Yvonne, work down there. But, I just the importance of mental health, which everybody is talking about to an extent in the trust and human factor of what people bring to work. And our company is here to help those organizations address that mental health need when it surfaces.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Let's end this. Appreciate you being on Global TV Talk Show. Have a wonderful day and a
You
great
too.
weekend. Yeah.
Same.
Thank you. Thank you, Ava. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.